It's night 6 on Survivor Rivals, and at Hoopai, Allison stands alone and watches everyone else talking to each other after Tribal Council. It's beginning to hit her that she's on the outs and is the next one to go if their tribe were to lose the next immunity challenge. Ivy, Anna, and Tanner quickly celebrate the fact that they all survived the vote. Tanner is amazed that Emma self-destructed at the discussion. Ivy feels like she won twice because they each survived and they were also able to get rid of a crazy person in Emma. At this point, they need to start isolating Allison so she remains the next target for the tribe. Meanwhile, Allison talks with Boo Boo and Caden, looking for answers from the last vote. Boo Boo admits he couldn't work with Emma anymore as she had a big mouth. He didn't want people to eventually target him for associating himself with a loud player. Caden agrees and says that Emma barely let other people voice their opinion. She always wanted things to go her way. Allison sighs and asks them if they plan to vote her out next, but Boo Boo says he still wouldn't mind getting rid of someone like Jared next who hasn't been trustworthy from the very beginning. At Hoo Hoo, Eric and BJ reassure Karen that she's not anyone's target right now. BJ pushes for Mark to go since he's been playing this game more solo than anyone else. Therefore, in a swap situation, he is more likely to flip on them. Karen says she doesn't care who goes between Mark and Sarah, as long as it's not her. Later, Mark and Sarah talk about the big three in Liana, BJ, and Jaya. Mark thinks they are in the core of the majority while also dragging Eric and Romero as their numbers. Sarah agrees and says they need to use Romero and flip him so he doesn't work with those three. Mark thinks they will have a shot at this, as long as Karen maintains trust with Romero. After the tribe goes to bed, Sarah and Karen wake up fairly early to chat. Sarah tells Karen that at this point, they can either flip on Mark to work with the majority for one vote and then hope for a swap, or they can try destroying the majority by flipping Romero to their side. Karen tells Sarah she had a conversation with Romero before, but she doesn't know if he's on board with her or just faking it with her. Sarah says she'll have chats with Romero too so she can try swaying him. Day 7, and everyone arrives at the mats. Hoo Hoo finds out that Emma was last voted off from Hoopai, in which nobody is that surprised. Justin confirms that there are 0 players at Rival Redemption Camp, meaning anyone voted off from here on out already have an easier shot at returning, as long as their rival saves them. Justin then says that at one point in this game, some rivals will need to reunite. That point is now. He reveals that it is time for a tribe swap. Everyone is in shock and almost everyone is nervous that they will be forced to live with their rival. Justin hands out scrolls with their tribe colors on them and then asks them all to open up the scrolls and head to the colored mat they belong to. They all check their colors and some people start making their way to the other side. Justin then goes over the 2 new tribes. On New Hoo Hoo, there are 4 X Hoo Hoo and 4 X Hoopai. They are as follows: Boo Boo, Allison, Anna, Jared, and then Romero, Mark, Karen, and BJ. On Hoopai, there are also 4 people each from X tribes, those being Adriana, Ivy, Tanner, Caden, and then Jaya, Eric, Sarah, and Liana. He points out that both tribes have 2 pairs of rivals reunited, those being Anna and BJ, and Jared and Romero from Hoo Hoo. From Hoopai, it's Adriana and Jaya, and Eric and Caden. With that, Justin lets them all know they can head to their camps. On the new Hoo Hoo tribe, Mark, BJ, and Romero talk about their new tribe. BJ instantly starts to panic since Anna is his rival. Romero says he doesn't care about his own rival, Jared. He feels like Jared won't be able to do much because he comes off weak in the game. Mark says that at this point, he's willing to throw away any drama they had on original Hoo Hoo and instead come together as a 4 to stay alive. BJ agrees and promises not to throw any original Hoo Hoo under the bus. Anna and Karen meet each other for the first time. They start connecting over the fact that they both saw each other as strong possible allies. Karen is especially glad she can work with her because she wasn't super connected with anyone on Hoo. In fact, she lost her main ally, Malum. Anna says she doesn't have a deep connection with Boo Boo, Jared, or Allison, but she doesn't think they will flip on each other. Karen says she doesn't care if someone from her old tribe has to go first if they end up heading to tribal council. Allison and Jared chat. Jared talks about how he plans to avoid Romero at all costs. Allison tells him that she feels for him and that if they can take out Romero, he'll feel much better. Jared says he sees Romero regularly, so he's used to his foolish personality. He just wants to prevent him from ruining his experience in the game. Allison pats Jared's shoulder and lets him know she's got his back from here on out, and he thanks her and smiles. Boo Boo later joins Karen and Anna to see what's up, and Anna fills him in that Karen is willing to flip on her old tribe. Karen nods and says she doesn't really care which of the three go, but mainly suggests BJ or Romero because they are part of the strong alliance on Hoo with Jaya, Eric, and Liana. Boo Boo gulps after hearing Liana's name, but he nods and says they can easily decide since they have 5 votes now instead of 4. At the new Hupai tribe, Adriana goes to Jaya to talk with her and Tanner follows behind her. Adriana sarcastically says she's glad to see her, and Jaya mocks her sarcasm. She asks Adriana if her goal is to make her life hell since they are on the same tribe now, and Adriana says she would rather do more productive things than interact with her. Tanner awkwardly stands in between the two of them and watches the rest of their conversation unfold. Eric talks to Sarah to ensure she stays Hoo strong. He hugs her and starts off by telling her how scary it is for him to swap onto a tribe with Caden, his rival. Sarah says that'll be an obstacle he'll need to face. She suggests he doesn't let Caden blind him by making him the center of his attention. Eric says he'll do his best to ignore whatever Caden tries to do to him, though he doesn't believe Caden will actively do anything to annoy him. Plus, there's not much Caden can do if Hoo stays 4 strong. Tanner and Ivy talk about how good it is they swapped with Caden and Adriana since they are their 2 newer allies. Ivy agrees and says she's just glad Allison is on the opposite tribe. She hopes Anna can work around her. Ivy then asks Tanner if he has gotten a chance to talk to anyone yet, and Tanner says he only knows that Adriana and Jaya are already butting heads. As he says that, Jaya joins them and gets to know them on a personal level. After getting to know each other, Jaya talks about her past with Adriana. She claims that Adriana stole her personal belongings and would usually never return them. After a while, they just stop talking to each other as a whole, so it's no wonder their relationship is toxic right now. Tanner says that crazier things have happened, so it's never out of the realm of possibilities that they ignore their past and work together. However, Jaya doesn't think Adriana would ever want to work with her in the game. Jaya offers Ivy and Tanner to instead work with Hoo, but Ivy and Tanner aren't super receptive, claiming they would obviously be on the bottom if they flipped on Adriana so quickly. Ivy and Liana get a chance to chat and talk about their connections to their rivals. Ivy talks about how gross of a vibe Mark gives off and that it's unfortunate her daughter is involved with him. Liana laughs and says that she sees what she means based on her interactions with Mark in the game so far. He comes off as very entitled sometimes. Ivy calls that an understatement. Liana then asks her if she knows how Boo Boo is doing in the game, and Ivy says she's not too familiar with what his game plans are since they barely spoke. Liana says she won't be too thrilled if Boo Boo makes the merge with her because she doesn't want him in her life anymore. Ivy breathes out and says she feels the same about Mark. Night 7. Tanner, Ivy, and Adriana chat for a bit about their initial thoughts about the 4 Hoo members. Adriana says she would love to vote Jaya out first, but if they both have other interests, she'll go along with them. Ivy says she actually doesn't see a problem targeting Jaya first, but she knows Caden is going to say the same about Eric. Tanner says at this point, he would be okay putting Jaya and Eric on their chopping block for now. If their tribe loses immunity, they can then decide on one name and go with it. Adriana says if they have to go to rocks, Sarah is most likely to flip to their side because she doesn't have a rival in this game anymore. It'll be harder to convince Liana because she's more worried about Boo Boo, who is connected with them in some way. Ivy points at Adriana and nods, agreeing completely with her thoughts. She adds that Liana is super focused on getting Boo Boo out, so she'll go to rocks in order to save her Hoo Hoo people. It's not the same for Sarah since she doesn't have to stress about her rival anymore. Kaden later talks to Tanner, asking him how Adriana's doing. Tanner says she's under control for now, but things could escalate if she's still with Jaya after a couple of days. Kaden says he doesn't have plans to talk with Eric because there's no point. Tanner tells him he's better off keeping it this way because talking to Eric could end poorly for him. Not only that, but it's better to avoid any chats with Hoo Hoo in general to avoid any information leaks. Back to the Hoo Hoo tribe, Mark and Jared interact for the first time. Mark tells him he has this good vibe about him, but Jared is confused because he admits to himself that he's not an interesting guy. Mark says he sees great game potential for the two of them if they make a secret alliance, but once again, Jared is unfazed. He doesn't understand what he means by game potential. He thought the goal in this game was to take out the enemy team in whichever way possible. Mark doesn't know how to respond to that, but then just tells Jared that this game is more than just teamwork. Jared then lets Mark know that there isn't a chance he betrays his teammates because it wouldn't make any sense. Their conversation ends right there. Allison connects with Karen and talks game with her. She asks Karen how strong old Hoo Hoo is, and Karen says there's only really a core 5 working together there. She's more on the outs of it alongside Mark and Sarah. Allison says she's also coming from a tribe where she was the sole person on the outs. That's why she's super hesitant to trust anyone from her ex-tribe. Karen finds this fascinating because she had chats with Anna and Boo Boo so far and they claimed Hoo Pai was going to stick together. Allison shrugs and says if she had to flip on all of them, she wouldn't mind. The only person she has a sliver of trust in is Jared, surprisingly. The only issue is that he's not too familiar with the gameplay Survivor offers, so he's harder to align with. Karen and Allison agree they should have more frequent chats because they see themselves working well with each other. It's now day 8, and it's time for the reward challenge. In this challenge, every tribe member will have one ball roll down the bowling lane and attempt to knock down as many pins. The more pins down, the more points the tribe earns collectively. After everyone has gone, the tribe with the most total points wins reward. The winning tribe will have each individual member open a box with the possibility of winning individual immunity that is only good for the next tribal they visit. 2 of the 8 boxes contain an immunity necklace, meaning 2 members will win an immunity necklace. They do not expire until after the next tribal they visit. With that, the challenge begins, and Jared is up first for Hoo Hoo. He ends up knocking down 6 pins, meaning 6 points for his tribe have been added. Eric is up first for Hoo Pai, and he flops his shot, gaining nothing for his tribe. Next for Hoo Hoo is Anna, and she surprises everyone by scoring 10 points for her tribe, adding it up to 16. Liana is next for Hoo Pai and scores nothing, meaning the score is 16-0 with Hoo Hoo leading. Allison is up for Hoo Hoo and ends up scoring a 0, so nothing changes. Jaya is next for Hoo Pai, and Jaya knocks down 3 pins, giving Hoo Pai a few points finally. Boo Boo is up for Hoo Hoo, and he ends up knocking down 6 pins, extending Wowho's lead. Adriana is then up for Orange, and she finally gets a lot more points for the tribe with all 10 pins down, meaning the score is now 22-13. Romero is up next, and he scores nothing for his tribe. On the other hand, Sarah is next for Hoo Pai and scores 10 points for her tribe, meaning that suddenly, Hoo Pai has a 1-point lead. Mark is next and ends up scoring 9 points for his tribe, giving his tribe the lead again. However, with Tanner going next, he ends up getting 10 points once again for Hoo Pai, therefore the score is now 33-31 for Hoo Pai. Karen is second last for Hoo and scores nothing for her tribe. Ivy is up for Hoopai and scores a 1, meaning the score is now 34-31. With both tribes having one more shot left, anything can happen. BJ is up for Hoo and ends up getting 7 pins down, meaning Hoo leads with 38 points. Caden is the decider for this challenge, so he rolls his ball down the lane and scores 7 points, meaning with a score of 41-38, Hoopai wins reward. They all celebrate their win and Justin goes straight to business. He asks all 8 Hoopai members to each pick a box and stand in front of them, so they do. He then asks them to open their boxes, and they all find out that Ivy and Sarah have immunity necklaces in theirs, meaning both of them are immune at their next tribal council. Justin then asks both tribes to head back to camp, so they do. At Hoopai, Liana congratulates both Sarah and Ivy for earning their immunity necklaces. Ivy is surprised, especially because she only got 1 point for the tribe. Sarah says that 1 point almost mattered towards their win. Eric and Jaya strategize on what the first move is for their alliance. Eric says it's quite obvious they will need to take a shot at their rivals first, so to him, the best first vote for them is either Caden or Adriana. Jaya says she truly doesn't mind who goes first between the two. The main goal for them right now is to gain the numbers so they can send those two out back to back. Eric then says he doesn't know whether it's smart or not to keep Caden on rival redemption once he's voted out. That's because he doesn't know when the returnee challenge will happen and he doesn't want to risk himself going home for good. Jaya understands his concerns and has been afraid of the same thing. She sees what happened to Emma after she took out her rival. Eric says he'll think about this greatly. On Hoo, Allison and Jared continue to strengthen their bond. Allison talks about how much she misses home already. Jared says he can't relate since he doesn't have much going on at home, but he would relate if his wife was still on this earth. Allison frowns and even starts to tear up once Jared talks about his wife. He constantly uses past tense to refer to her, which reminds Allison of her sister who also passed away a few years ago. Jared apologizes for even bringing up an emotional story and says he'll stop. Meanwhile, Mark and Romero talk about how they can keep their numbers alive. Mark says they need to push Jared as the main target for everyone because he's clearly unable to play the game of Survivor. He has minimal knowledge of what Survivor has evolved into. Therefore, it gives people from old Hoopai to vote him out. Romero says they need to befriend Boo Boo, Allison, and Anna in some manner, so they are convinced they need to take out Jared. Mark says he can definitely work on Allison because she seems like a very passive player. Mark then tries to dig a little bit into Allison's game by asking her what her intentions are right now on this tribe. Allison shrugs and says she doesn't really know what is going on because nobody is really filling her in. Mark then tells her he can fill her in on what some people, including himself, are thinking as of now. He suggests Jared as the first boot of this tribe since he's not that aware of how Survivor is played. Allison stalls in her response a bit and then says she isn't sure if that would go well for Boo Boo and Anna, considering there is this obvious divide of tribal lines. Mark says they technically don't need Boo Boo and Anna if Allison would be willing to flip, but she doesn't seem receptive to this conversation one bit. BJ, Karen, and Boo Boo all discuss potentially voting out Jared first. Boo Boo says that although Jared is from his ex-tribe, he never really trusted Jared on a game level. He wants to align with people who can properly play this game, and he sees that in other people. BJ nods and says Jared has no place here. He adds that Romero is obviously most looking forward to this move, so he is free from Jared. Boo Boo laughs and says he hopes they have his back moving forward if he goes through with voting out Jared, and both BJ and Karen promise they would. It's night 8, and although nothing much goes on with Hoo, a lot goes on at Hoopai. Caden and Adriana talk about Jaya since Caden has some information on her. He creates a lie about Jaya. He says that Jaya is claiming that Adriana tried to work with her in secret, but Adriana obviously says she never offered to work with her. Caden says he trusts her over Jaya, but she'll need to deal with Jaya. Adriana starts to get heated as she begins to think Jaya is trying to stir the pot with a bold lie. While they chat, all four ex-Hoo-Hoo talk with Ivy, trying to lead her to their side. Liana tells Ivy that she's more than welcome to join their group of four. Not only would she be safe with them, but going into Merge, nobody would look at her as a target. Jaya says it's quite clear there will be lines drawn in Merge, including those on the opposite tribe right now. She claims they have no real interest working with Mark from the other tribe, so they're even gonna go as far as to make him the first Merge boot since he's too physical. Ivy is flattered and loves the sound of voting out Mark, so she tells them to bookmark this conversation so they can talk about it more in the future. Eric asks her if this means she'll be down to vote with them as a block of 5, and Ivy says she'll 100% consider the offer. Sarah, Adriana, Jaya, and Tanner are all in a conversation later. Adriana confronts Jaya by asking her if it's true she's telling people that she made a final 2 with her. Jaya squints and says she obviously never said that because it sounds absurd to begin with. Adriana crosses her arms and asks her to stop lying. Jaya claims she never said this and even asks Tanner and Sarah if that ever came out of her mouth. Tanner shrugs and says it definitely sounds like something she would do since she's clearly a sneaky player. Jaya snaps back and says she dislikes when people assume she's sneaky because of her personality. Tanner yells back at her and says he never made it about her personality and is only going off of gameplay. He says she's always chatting it up with Eric and Liana and then runs over to certain Hoo-Pai members to try to align with them. Jaya shakes her head and says it's hypocritical to say something like that when everyone already does that. Tanner shakes his head and says he wouldn't try aligning with every person, but Jaya says once again that she never had conversations to work with Adriana. She even brings up how he was part of their first conversation yesterday, and Tanner replies by saying it's obvious they aren't working together, but Jaya is the one creating the lie. Jaya asks Adriana who specifically told her this information, but Adriana refuses to expose that person. Jaya leaves the conversation, claiming that Adriana is most likely coming up with this stuff to cause drama. Tanner later talks with Caden and fills him in on the drama. Caden fuels the fire by calling Jaya a master gaslighter. Tanner laughs and says he honestly would rather see Jaya go home before Eric. Caden says he doesn't really care at this point because either way, they can knock both of them out one after the other. It's now day 9, and it's time for the immunity challenge. Hoo-Hoo returns the immunity statue from the previous challenge win. Justin then explains that this challenge will occur in 2 versus 2 rounds. Players must swim across the body of water and reach the other side to retrieve a colored object. Once retrieved, they must swim back to the seats. The first pair to sit back down with their object will win a point for the tribe. The first tribe to score 3 points will win immunity. Players cannot go in back-to-back rounds, but can play more than once in total. The first round is Jared and Allison for Hoo-Hoo up against Eric and Tanner for Hoo-Pai. The round starts, and all 4 are somewhat neck and neck, with Tanner a bit behind the others. All 4 reach the other side and grab their object and begin swimming back. In the end, Jared, Allison, and Eric reach the chairs at the same time, but since Tanner was a few seconds behind, Hoo-Hoo scores the point. In round 2, Romero and Mark are up for Hoo-Hoo, and Liana and Ivy are up for Hoo-Pai. Mark eyes Romero and tells him this is easy mode. The round begins, and all 4 get into the water. Ivy and Mark swim very quickly, but Liana struggles a lot in the water. Ivy and Mark pick up their object, and Romero is right behind. Liana on the other hand is still reaching the other side, and eventually makes it. After swimming back, Mark is first to sit down on his seat, and Ivy is right there behind him, leaving just Romero and Liana. Romero easily sits down way before Liana, giving Hoo-Hoo their second point now. Ivy pulls Liana out of the water and lets her know not to be embarrassed. She hears Mark laughing in the background with his tribe and she yells at him to shut up, calling him a pig in the process. In round 3, we have Jared and Anna for Hoo Hoo up against Jaya and Sarah for Hoo Pie. They start swimming out, and they are all pretty even. Sarah makes it to her object a few seconds before the rest, but it's still anyone's game. Sarah makes it back to her seat before the other 3, and Anna reaches her seat before Jaya and Jared. With Jaya and Jared in an extremely close race, Jared beats Jaya in just under a second, meaning Hoo Hoo wins immunity 3-0. They all cheer, especially Mark, who lets out a loud roar. Hoo Pie hug each other, Liana crying over the loss. Justin lets Hoo Pie know that someone will become the 5th person voted out of Survivor Rivals. He reminds them it won't be Sarah or Ivy because they have immunity tonight from the previous reward challenge. With that, they head back to camp. At Wopai's camp, Sarah and Adriana hug for a couple of seconds. Sarah tells her she doesn't want there to be any bad blood between the two of them because she actually really likes her. Adriana thanks her and says she wants to play this game with methodical players, and she gets this good vibe from her. Sarah tells her she doesn't know what approach to take tonight because of course, her ex-tribe expects her to vote with them. Adriana says she understands and tells her she doesn't need to initially vote against them if she doesn't want to. She asks Sarah if she knows who her tribe is voting for tonight, and Sarah tells her it's actually her tonight. Adriana smirks and isn't surprised that Jaya is after her tonight. She thanks Sarah again and they split off. Eric and Caden officially talk to each other, and Jaya is right with them. Eric tells him they should probably still talk game with each other, but of course never bring up personal problems from their past. Eric realizes how important it is to have strong game relationships and that you don't need to form personal bonds in order to work with people. Caden finds this intriguing and says he truthfully never felt this strong game relationship with any of the other 3 Hoo Pie members on this tribe. Jaya says that tonight, it has to be a 5-3 vote to avoid going to rocks. Caden nods and asks who they plan to vote for, and Eric lies to him by saying it's Tanner tonight. Caden nods and says they don't need to discuss further. He says he's voting Tanner tonight. Sarah later talks with Ivy, confirming that Adriana is getting the votes tonight from her ex-tribe. Although she would hate to see Adriana go, she can't necessarily be the vote that saves Adriana because her whole ex-tribe will distrust her. Ivy understands and says she was actually hoping her and Liana would flip over to their side because she personally wants to work with them. Sarah says she shouldn't trust Liana because her loyalty is definitely more with Jaya, Eric, and BJ than anyone else. Ivy takes note of this and they hug each other, reminding themselves that they are at least making it through another day together. Adriana and Tanner chat in the meantime, and Adriana tells him tonight will most likely be a tie. They might have to go to rocks. Tanner breathes out and tells her how nervous she is since the odds of going home to rocks are much more severe with 2 immune players in the mix. Adriana tells him that Sarah informed her that ex-Hoo Hoo is voting for her, so it's clear Jaya is controlling that vote. Tanner doesn't fully trust Sarah and warns Adriana not to believe everything the enemy says. Adriana talks with Ivy and asks her if she had any key conversations today, and Ivy says she feels like Sarah is someone who will eventually flip to their side. It's just she doesn't want to flip now because she worries her ex-tribe will target her next. Adriana doesn't understand why Sarah doesn't trust that they can form a new 5, that being the 4 ex-Hoo Pie and her in the mix. Ivy says she hasn't seen how Hoo Pie plays, so she's more concerned whether or not they are lying to her face or not. Adriana doesn't even know if Sarah is lying to her that she's getting votes tonight. It could be Tanner or Caden, especially Caden since he's Eric's rival. Ivy says they just need to threaten rocks as much as possible tonight so that hopefully someone like Sarah or Liana flip on ex-Hoo Hoo. It's night 9, and it's time for Wopai's tribal council. They all sit down and face Justin. He begins the discussion by reminding everyone that Sarah and Ivy are immune tonight from the previous reward win. He asks Ivy if that takes a huge weight off of her shoulders for tonight, and Ivy wastes no time talking about how great it feels to be immune from not only the vote, but a rock draw. She points out the obvious. It's a 4-4 split tonight, meaning unless someone flips, there's a good chance people will be drawing rocks tonight. Eric and Jaya smile in response, so Justin asks Eric how he feels about that. Eric says it doesn't have to be rocks tonight if someone from Hupai wants to flip over. Caden scratches his head in reaction to that. Justin then asks Adriana if she is worried that her rival is on this tribe, and Adriana says it's absolutely worrying because that's already a bigger target on her back. She makes it clear that her and Jaya are never going to work together in this game and that they will target each other until one of them goes home for good. Liana adds on that there's a lot of paranoia while your rival is still in the game. It's very hit or miss whether you should work with them or not. Personal things can get in the way of gameplay sometimes, and that'll always be the case for people like Jaya and Adriana who can never get past their issues. Adriana then turns around to Ivy, Tanner, and Caden, huddling them together and starting to whisper to them. The other 4 ex-Hoo-Hoo members watch as Adriana whispers to them. Liana turns back to Eric and asks him if he knows what's going on, so he whispers to her. Justin asks Jaya and Sarah if either of them know what's going on, and both scoff in response. Sarah says she doesn't know what caused tribal whispers, and Jaya says it's probably Adriana telling people to switch their votes tonight. She's probably fearful of an idle play. The whispers wrap up, so Justin prepares everyone for the vote.
I'll tally the votes. If anyone has a hidden immunity idol and they want to play it, now would be the time to do so. It seems Adriana is using her hidden immunity idol tonight. She's deciding to play this for herself. This means that any votes for Adriana will not count. I'll read the votes. First vote. Adriana does not count. Adriana does not count. Adriana does not count. Adriana does not count. Jaya. That's one vote, Jaya. Jaya. 2 votes, Jaya. Eric. 2 votes, Jaya. 1 vote, Eric. 1 vote left. Eric. We have a tie between Jaya and Eric. We will re-vote. Jaya and Eric will not vote this time. Everyone else must vote either Jaya or Eric. If we tie again, Liana, Caden, and Tanner will need to draw rocks. It's time to vote. I'll get the votes. I'll read the votes. First vote, Jaya. Eric. That's one vote Jaya, one vote Eric. Jaya. 2 votes Jaya, 1 vote Eric. Jaya. That's 3 votes Jaya, 1 vote Eric. 5th person voted out of Survivor Rivals. Jaya.
Jaya closes her eyes and flops her head forward. Adriana continuously smiles and Caden avoids eye contact with Jaya as she glances at him while getting her torch. She places her torch down next to Justin and gets it snuffed by him. She turns around to the rest and says that at the end of the day, Adriana made a great play and she's definitely the next front runner for this season. Adriana rolls her eyes and Jaya heads out. Justin lets the 7 others know they can head back to camp, and he asks Sarah and Ivy to leave their immunity necklaces on their seats before they leave. They follow through and then everyone heads back to camp. Jaya runs into the rival redemption sign and finds out she'll have to head to the rival redemption camp where she will await her fate. Before tomorrow's reward challenge, she'll learn if Adriana wants to keep her around or not. Jaya doesn't expect Adriana to keep her after taking her out of the game, but of course, anything is possible in this game. She gave a respectful speech at the end to hopefully make Adriana feel bad if she's considering to eliminate her. Although it's very unlikely it'll work, it was worth a shot. Next time on Survivor Rivals, with Adriana getting out Jaya thanks to her hidden immunity idol play, the new idol is re-hidden on Hupai. After Caden decided not to work with Hoo, Eric tries to find a way to keep himself alive in the game. Meanwhile, Adriana begins to worry that Jaya's final words after her vote off might pin a target on her back moving forward. Is Adriana going to tank her game even more with her actions? Plus, will Jaya become the first rival given a second chance at the game, or will she follow the other 4 eliminated players and officially get out of the game? Find out on Thursday.